I joined the Army in 1996, and then I would join the Navy in like 2000. My dad was in the Army, my grandfather was in the Army, my uncle was in the Marine Corps. Um, on my dad's side, I think his dad was in the Army. It was a family thing.
I always wanted to join. I actually wanted to join the Marines, but I graduated high school when I was 17 and my mom had to sign off, and my mom would not sign off. And so I waited a couple years and I went into the Army because the recruiter was available and the Marine recruiter was not. Anybody hungry? You guys ready?
We met in 2005 and we competed against each other in a pageant, in a drag pageant. He did pretty good.
Who's he?
You.
Oh.
No, we both had a really good time. He came in second alternate that year, and I won. And then he came over and sat by me during this awards brunch, and nobody else had come and talked to me almost the whole time that we had been there, and we had already been there for like 2 or 3 days.
Something like
Yeah, so nobody else wanted to talk to me, to have anything to do with me really. It was, and then he come over and sat down, and he was like, "Hi, how you doing?" And we've been friends ever since.
I'm pretty sure my voice was about like that too.
Yeah, absolutely. It was pretty much that high.
So I made the first move. And I was just like, "Hey, I'm Joshua." And he's like, "I'm Vince." And I'm like, "Awesome, you're cute." He's like, "No, you're beautiful." And I was like, "You're not from here." You know what I mean? No one in Tampa, Florida called anybody beautiful. Like, it wasn't a thing. So I gave him my number. So I was like very direct. I'm like, "Here's my number. You're gonna take me out. Sound good?" And he's like, "Yeah, I would love that." Right? But he would never have said it because I think our energy is like totally opposite. Yeah, so then the rest is history. Even though I grew up around the base, my family's not military, so I'm a civilian all the way. But then as I was like thinking about it, I'm like, I think this isn't okay, right? So then I asked him about it, and he's like, "Yeah, it's on us, don't tell. Like, we can't," especially with me being so flamboyant and just like bubbly and airy. He was just like, "We have to kind of like be chill. Are you okay with that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm cool." Until it got into it, and then I realized like how messed up that world was at the time, and how they're like all focused on family first, but not our family, right? It was so devastating. Like, we have 2 kids, and I was just like sitting in the background, like while he went to events, and our kids could go, but I had to stay home.
When I joined the Army, I was presenting as a lesbian female. And I didn't never tell anybody that I was lesbian. We had our own, I don't know how we knew each other were gay and lesbian, for the most part, but, we would go to clubs, on the weekends, gay clubs, and find our family and friends that way. I had already known that I was transgender. I just didn't have a word for it yet. So I thought I was lesbian. I expressed myself as lesbian. And then I met a trans man at a club one night and completely changed my whole life. Even though I knew at that point what was going on with me and I started doing research, I still couldn't do anything about it, because I was in the military. And then even when I went into the Navy, it was the same thing.
Don't Ask, Don't Tell was put in place originally by the Clinton administration as a brokered peace deal, essentially, to allow certain folks to keep serving and to get some unrelated concessions between Congress and the president. There was a lot of push from some conservative right groups that were really concerned that as there started to be, I wouldn't even say base level acceptance, but there started to be consideration that maybe these people were not horribly immoral evil, they would be allowed to co-opt public spaces. Of course, one of the biggest public spaces, one of the biggest prestige spaces in American culture is the military. So to be clear, those folks had been serving and had been serving since the beginning of the United States. It was now we were going to officially address them.
Under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, it was such a weird policy in that it asked service members to conceal something that nobody else really had to conceal. And being in the military, families are kind of centered to just your existence in the military. It's definitely different than civilian life in that, you know, your boss expects to know the name of your spouse and your kids and how old they are. And when there are family gatherings or outings, they expect to see, you know, your family there. And I think a lot of the reason why is that when a service member is deployed, you know, their unit is still taking care of their family. So whether they're mowing the grass or making sure the kids get to school or whatever, they definitely focus on that whole family unit. And so under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, even if you had a family, you couldn't tell anybody. And of course, when the questions came up, you had to lie. Even though they say, oh, don't ask, don't tell, you had to be untruthful about it because you have a family, but you can't talk about your family.
I was definitely a lesbian at the time, you know, and it was funny because because I obviously went in as a heavy construction equipment operator, right? You know, big, you know, butch lesbian, you know, that's what I wanted to do. And there was a person that was in the office. Everybody deemed her as this bitch, and you don't want to talk to her, you don't want to say anything to her, she will get you in trouble, that kind of thing. Literally walked right up to me and was like, hey, I just want to know, I just have a question for you. And I was like, okay. And it was like a Friday afternoon. It was like, I just want to know if you're a lesbian. Nope. Well, the reason why I'm asking is because I am, and we're going out tonight, and I want to know if you're going. And I was like, is this a trick question? I mean, you know, I was scared. I was scared to ask. And, you know, she literally had to say, I'm not kidding. I'm a lesbian. Me and my girlfriend are going out tonight. I want to know if you want to go. And I was like, seriously, am I being punked right now? Like, is this really happening? She was like, I'm serious. You could trust me. We're going out tonight. I want to know if you want to go. I said, if this is serious, I'll go. She was like, I'm serious. You can go. You could trust me. I'm not making this up. So we actually went out and we actually became very good friends.
There's actually some really interesting literature still out there of comic books that were produced by the Department of the Army to make sure people knew what type of evidence they were allowed to consider when it came to kicking someone out. One of the things that was not addressed early on that became a really big piece around the fight to end Don't Ask, Don't Tell was this question of what do we do with them when we kick them out? This is someone who has, in theory, served honorably, has completed training, has done everything required of them, met all of our standards, met the physical standard, met the mental standard, and then we've decided they have to get out. Congratulations, you've served. You have PTSD or you have an injury, and we're going to kick you out and say that you cannot access any of the benefits that you should have been allowed to access. And there was really this tension within a certain segment of American society around, are we doing the moral and right thing? And it was less about like the fight that I saw, at least as someone who was in the service at the time and someone who was following a lot of the larger service organizations. It was really not being presented as gays are good and gays should be allowed to serve. It was being presented as like, these folks are doing exactly what you asked of them. They're serving exactly how you want them to serve. They're preserving the national honor, and then you're kicking them out.
In Tampa is when he was chief select. Yeah. And so we had a ceremony. And that was an event, right? I was so proud of him, but I had to sit there silent. Like I couldn't cry, because why would another guy be crying? Our neighbor was one of the people underneath them, so he mentored them, and in the same logistics area at the hospital, and she was our neighbor. And the day of the event, when he was like, the celebration of becoming a chief, she was sitting at the head table with me, and the kids went up and all of that, and she just rested her hand on my back. And I just pushed it away because it was, it's just like such a raw time. I was so nervous. Like I was already trying to like hold myself together that our two little kids were up there. He's meeting like an amazing chief who like just paved the way, right? And they're like, we're so happy for your family, all of this. And I'm just sitting there like, I wanted to raise my hand and like get up there, but I couldn't. So her doing that, she knew, but you don't talk about it. And that hand was support, which made me want to like lose it. It makes me all emotional. Every time I talk about it, it's been so long, right? But every time I talk about it, it's still like raw. Like just his frustration, my frustration, because I came out at 16. So I was already out of the closet. So then I had to get back into the closet.
I even got pulled into the office one time, and they said, I'm not asking and you don't have to tell, but this is what we heard. This is what somebody came to us about. And it was a mess, and it was, they had accused me of kissing another female at the base club, which was absolutely not true. But they did have to pull me in the office and try that don't ask, don't tell noise with me once. And I just told them, I'm not saying anything. All I know is I didn't do whatever this person is saying that I did. Don't ask, don't tell was a really hard way to live in the military if you were LGBT at all.
As Admiral Mike Mullen has said, our people sacrifice a lot for their country, including their lives. None of them should have to sacrifice their integrity as well. That's why I believe this is the right thing to do for our military. That's why I believe it is the right thing to do, period. I also want to commend our military leadership. Ending Don't Ask, Don't Tell was a topic in my first meeting with Secretary Gates, Admiral Mullen, and the Joint Chiefs. We talked about how to end this policy. We talked about how success in both passing and implementing this change depended on working closely with the Pentagon, and that's what we did.
I think what the Army had that civilian life didn't was that model of acceptance. And what I mean by that is like Big Army was like, no, like we're ending Don't Ask, Don't Tell. They can serve openly and you have to accept it. And this is considered a part of your professional development, your ability to lead these folks equally and without discrimination. And I think that's very similar to the integration of the Army. Is they weren't really a leader for integrating. They were a leader for expecting people to just deal with it and expecting as part of your professionalism for you to treat these folks equally.
On the equal treatment, sir, it just seems like me as a Christian, sir, it just seems like it's not an equal treatment to me because I'm basically being told that regardless of my religion or regardless of my beliefs, I'm just gonna have to grit and bear the fact that, homosexuals are going to be able to openly serve.
We have to treat everybody with dignity and respect. And as long as we do that, nobody's telling you you can't follow your Christian beliefs. Because nobody's telling you what your sexual orientation needs to be. Okay? You don't have to change any of your beliefs based upon sexual orientation. All we're doing is telling you how you have to act at work and off work when you're dealing with issues related to something that's private.
I think we're finally there as far as the legal aspect goes. Now, as far as the cultural aspect and stuff, there's still a ways to go there.
LGBT community meshing with the veterans it's fine in the LGBT
It's
part.
seamless.
Yes, we just
On the other side, you have a lot of people that are
Like
are
when we-
okay with it, but then you also have the people that aren't okay with it, you know, and it to them it feels forced. And unfortunately, we're not trying to force it on them. It's just who we are, and they just probably don't understand. And I think it's just an educational. It's an education problem. If they could just get to know somebody, if they could really sit down and actually talk to them, or they could, you know, just have a better understanding that this is just who I am. This is just part of me.
We're just like you. Like, we're small business owners, we're fathers, and we happen to love each other. Like, what's so different about that? I really feel that we need to love a lot more, forgive a lot more, and embrace people for what their differences are. Like, hands down. If we just forgive, love, and just embrace. That's it.
Stay strong.
yeah, stand your
Stay
ground.
stay strong.
Stand your ground.
Because you know that we will always fight, and we are a very resilient people, and regardless of the decisions that are made today, we will always do what we do best, and that is to fight for who we are and what we are, and fight
And
for
those
others.
people that can't fight for themselves.
That's correct.